I just want to add this because I realized afterwards the joys of trying to manage a big group of you, that one of the people asked about how to deal with the nervousness, um, around the horse. And this is actually something that I could talk about for another whole half an hour. So I can kind of see now why I nearly didn't get into it, not intentionally, but that's what happened. And I want to speak to it now, not to just ignore that, because it's something that we can see with a lot of people. We can see with horse people and non-horse people, high competitive riders, non-competitive riders. It's really interesting. I don't have one answer. So the question was, how can I fix this? How can I fix my nervousness around my horse? There's so many ways that you can fix this. And we're talking like you get a trainer, you get someone that can help you learn how to manage your horses. Because one thing is there's a lack of knowledge of know-how. That can be a fundamental. Even if you have great listening skills, you still need to know how to manage situations. You can get someone like me, to come out and do some work with you, with your horse, to go through the emotional stuff that's going on in there with you, because realistically that's the stuff that's going on with the person that's having that nervousness. Nervousness often comes from not being in our power. It's like it's quite it's a big one. It's a big one. And the reason I'm speaking with this is because it's not, maybe you're listening to it and like, I'm not nervous around horses. Well, you may not be nervous around horses, but you're probably nervous in some situations in your life. And the same things apply. So it basically triggers something in us that we don't feel safe, we don't feel comfortable, we don't feel like we control the situation, we don't feel seen, we don't feel heard. There's all these things in there. And what happens is our fears take over. So we spoke a lot about that in the workshop. And I wanted to say that, to deal with our fears, we need to go on a big journey. You can't just wake up in the morning and be like, hey, I have no fears. That's just not going to happen. Okay, it can happen. Some people, it can happen, but it's like very minuscule, 0.0000001%. But like the most part, people have to work on their fears, work on removing their blockages, work on new mind patterns, work on why they have those fears, knowing why you have those fears. There's huge, it's absolutely massive. And this is actually what I help people do. So it's a really good question. And I don't know why I missed it, but sorry. But I suppose now, because I can spend more time on it and speak to it a little bit more. But, I would say to that person directly, that I would say is go into your own stuff, because you mentioned that how your horse tells you fuck off. Okay. Well, because of your nervousness or whatever. And, she's probably just saying, hey, go sort your shit out. Go sort your shit out. Go sort your shit out, and then we'll hang out, And it's not much different than some people that you might be friends with and they don't want to hang out with you anymore because you're not fun to hang out with, maybe, because you're just too like, whatever it is. I don't know. I'm just really making up this situation. But the reality is that relationships shift and change. And we have that in our families, like our blood families that maybe we, or non-blood families, if you're in adoption situations, the families that you are like literally having to be around and, you have to engage with at Christmas, for example, you might not get on with them, but somehow you kind of have to be involved. So why do we expect our horses to just like us? Like, why do you expect the horse to just want to hang out with you? So there's kind of, I know this can be really harsh. This is really harsh. This is really real, really harsh, really painful. So I want to speak to that. It's, if you're like, God, that hurts. Well, it's really good that you can feel that, because when we can kind of get into those feelings, we can kind of see why those issues are there a bit more. And there's not just one thing you can do. I would say, if you can only see your nervousness coming up around horses, it is there in the rest of your life. You just don't have a life that triggers it. So you probably don't do newer things, or like it's unsure. It's unsure. I don't know you. I don't know your horse. I don't know your situation. It's quite vague. But on the bigger thing is, if there's nothing else that makes you nervous, that means that she's just triggering a part of you that is nervous. And that part doesn't get triggered anywhere else because your other parts of your life just don't cause that uncertainty, uncontrol. And horses are great at that because they're too big, so we can't control them unless you have knowledge and force and skill. And at that, is that really right? Is it kind of like, should we really be doing that? There is of course, like, well, it's now like you've kind of got a relationship, so it's a control thing. It's kind of fascinating. This conversation actually can go on for ages. It's like you're taking a tin off Matcha and letting her share a lot of her stuff, of all her experiences here. But yeah, like if anyone listens to this and gets some insight, or they get some bigger vision of what I'm trying to say here, feel free to email me. Feel free. I've talked too much now. Feel free to give the feedback to it. Yeah, it's definitely nervousness is a real thing. It's a real thing. When I take it to my own life and my own personal experience, can I say I've been nervous around horses? Definitely. Like, if there's anyone that says I've never been nervous around a horse, that has been around horses all their lives, they're lying. They're either dead inside. Sorry if that's you. You're just in a place where you're probably not feeling, you're just gone into a numbness. I've been in that place, so I can vouch for it, that you're just like, it's fine, it's hard, you're harding, and that is a lot of what goes on in the horse industry. There's a lot of harding. It's a tough industry. It's a really tough industry. So feeling nervousness is healthy, I would say, because you're feeling something. You're feeling something, and what I'd say is it's okay to feel that. It's great that you know that. And to fix, I would say fix is not the right word, but I would say to give it presence, to give it like, intention, and to help dissolve it, I would say it's about empowering what's behind that nervousness. And that I don't know, because that's individual to all of us. To speaking to my own situation, I noticed when I wasn't riding, it was very different for me. I remember I started noticing things differently as the years went on when I wasn't riding, how I was with horses. It's kind of interesting. And I also noticed stuff like when I was in a really, not like a weak place. I wasn't a weak place, but in a very emotional place where I felt vulnerable, when I felt, soft, when I felt like I was being very in my feminine energy, basically. And we all, man or woman, has a thing called feminine energy. So when you're in that really, really feminine energy, and it's weak feminine energy, because feminine energy can be very strong and very grounded and very able and very powerful. But when it's in kind of more of a vulnerable, like if you think of a baby, they're kind of like beautiful, divine, but they're like really vulnerable. Being around horses at certain points, not all the time, but like in certain situations, and generally not in my work at all, because it's a very different context. Generally, this would have came up with my own horses. because I'm letting them conversate with me. I don't control them as much as because I don't ride them now or anything. So they're like really hardcore. If they want to say something, it's very obvious. I noticed myself flinching and stuff, and I was like, whoa, I've never been like that. And when I related into the rest of what was going on in my life, it was spot on. Like, it was related to how I felt. I felt like I wasn't really in a place where I could protect myself. If I walked in the city at night, I felt kind of like vulnerable. So it was loads of places it felt in relation to. And then I came out of it again. It shifted and it changed, and I'm in a totally different place, but it was a patch that I was in, and it wasn't because the horses caused it. It was just my being, the way I was. So, yeah, I hope that gives you some insight for all of you. And you can see this conversation is going into like 12 minutes now. And I'm going to post this up in unlisted, so it'll be up only for this few days while the record is available, and then I'm gonna probably take it down, and it'll be private only, so if people request it. But you probably have watched it. And yeah, so it was an awesome question, very honest, very very open, and I think it's going to reside in a lot of people's lives. So thank you for asking that, and I'm sorry I didn't speak to it fully there and then, because I think this is why, because it needed a lot of conversation. And so I couldn't really go back to that, but apologies I didn't share that to you at that moment. So goodbye to you. I'm just going out to the horses now after a lovely workshop with you, and yeah. Oh, and that's the thing. For some reason, the Eventbrite said that it was on tomorrow, and that's a mistake, and I couldn't fix that, and I meant to explain that, and I totally forgot. But yeah, and I couldn't fix it. The Eventbrite was having a poo-poo time at me. Okay, see you all again. Bye-bye.